Honourable members will be courteous about the next speaker and leave the House quietly.
Until 5 months ago, I was oblivious to the existence of the drug Xanax. It was only after I was contacted by a concerned mother that I became fully aware of the problem that was going on right under our noses. I'm holding this first debate about Xanax in Parliament to raise awareness about what could potentially be a widespread problem. Xanax, or alprazolam, is a sedative from the benzodiazepine family of drugs. It is physically and psychologically highly addictive, and its sedative effects start after 15 minutes of consumption and can last between 10 and 20 hours. When taken with alcohol, the impact is multiplied, and one of the side effects is memory loss. Xanax is licensed in the UK, but is not prescribed on the NHS. It can, however, be prescribed privately by a doctor, and unsurprisingly, it is hardly ever prescribed in the UK. But it is widely available and prescribed to treat anxiety and panic attacks in the United States of America. It is reported to be the 8th most prescribed drug in the USA. With the influence of popular culture glamorizing the drug and creating a curiosity and demand in the UK, and with the drug being available online for as little as £1 a pill, this is now causing a problem which seems to be spreading. And this brings me back to my initial interest as a result of some casework I picked up in my constituency. The concerned mother told me about how her 14-year-old daughter, and I call her Zoe for the purposes of this debate, had become a regular user of Xanax, and how this had, in just 5 months, resulted in a downward spiral leading to Zoe's permanent exclusion from school. This is Zoe's story. Zoe was a bright and popular girl and had a wide group of friends when she started at a local secondary school in 2013. And as is sometimes the case with early teenagers, Zoe had some fallings out with her group of friends and was eager to do exciting things. In July of last year, Zoe and her best friend were approached by an older girl at school and introduced to an ex-pupil whom they started hanging out with, and together with a group of slightly older people, and some of who were adults. Zoe and her friends started going to private raves with the crowd and also to parties in houses across North London, where, swept up in the whirl of excitement of this new lifestyle, Zoe was introduced to Xanax. Throughout July and August, Zoe and her best friend would be out regularly with this crowd, taking Xanax and mixing it with alcohol and getting sedated and into a zombie-like state. On some occasions, Zoe would come home from a night out with marks and bruises on her arms and legs, with no recollection of how she got them, and at best a hazy notion as to what had happened. One of the side effects of Xanax is amnesia, and there's always a risk that when under the influence of the drug, users become extremely vulnerable to abuse. And while there was no certainty about whether Zoe was sexually abused, the concern was there. Over the summer, Zoe had completely transformed. Zoe's mother, like most parents, were absolutely horrified at the change in her daughter since she started hanging around with this new crowd. She started rowing with Zoe, and on one occasion, with Zoe under the influence of Xanax, she tried to stop Zoe going out. Another side effect of Xanax is aggressive behaviour. And so in addition to the normal behaviour that teenagers express when rebelling against their parents, in this instance, Zoe physically and violently attacked her mother, leaving her with bruises on her arms and legs. And Zoe then ran out of the flat. Zoe's mother was desperate and frightened and had no option but to call the police to restrain her daughter. And at the same time, she rushed out barefoot in the street to make sure that Zoe came to no harm, and watched in horror as Zoe stepped out in front of cars and a bus. The police came quickly and arrested Zoe, which seemed to calm the situation down. No charges were brought. The next day, after spending the night in the cells, Zoe had no recollection of what had happened, nor of her arrest. The problems continued. Zoe's mother discovered that Zoe and her best friend were visiting various houses across North London, where kids were taking drugs and drinking. Zoe's mother then found out some of the names of the older people that Zoe was mixing with. It transpired that some of these people were known to the police, and with the help of the police, she managed to get abduction warning notices served on 6 people, so that they were found to be, if they were found to be associated with Zoe, they could be arrested. An even more worrying discovery by Zoe's mother were some baggies, which are small plastic bags used by drug dealers for neatly holding small amounts of drugs, and these were hidden in Zoe's bedroom, and Zoe was now hiding things for her new friends. In conversations I've had with the NSPCC, they've told me that Zoe's behaviour is typical of someone who is being groomed. Zoe had been cut off from her school friends, been warmly embraced by this new crowd who promised excitement, and having been initiated, she was now doing favours for them. Zoe was now at risk of being exploited by the people who were drug dealers whom she regarded as her new friends. Despite Zoe's mother's heroic efforts, Zoe continued to find ways of accessing Xanax. Things took a turn for the worse when, in September, Zoe and her best friend were found to be high on drugs in a zombie-like state with clothes dishevelled and hair messed up on school premises. As anyone who has a connection to a school will know, being drunk or intoxicated by drugs on school premises leads to permanent exclusion. Despite this, and after being implored not to exclude Zoe from school, she was allowed to stay on, and some support services were provided for her. The pressure on Zoe's mother was unbearable. Zoe's mother was so desperate and struggling to manage with the situation that she asked the local council if they could step in and find temporary foster parents for Zoe. Zoe was placed in foster care for just over a week. Whilst that seemed to shake her up, when she returned home, she was back to her old routine. Despite Zoe's mother and the school trying their best to help, Zoe was still able to easily get hold of Xanax, which was being peddled by a dealer from a booth in a McDonald's restaurant 2 minutes away from her school. And at £1 a pill, it was well within the level of affordability for some young people. To make matters even starker, the McDonald's is next to a police station. All the information that had been pieced together was passed on to the police. And following pressure from the school, Zoe's mother and myself, the police arrested 3 people on drug-related charges in December. This was not, however, before Zoe and her best friend were found to be drunk on the school premises and then permanently excluded from school. Zoe's case is not the only one. On researching the subject, I discovered that on the 9th of May 2017, 20, 15 and 16-year-olds were taken ill in Salisbury, Wiltshire, and had received medical treatment after taking Xanax. A further 8 young people were hospitalised in Sussex over the Christmas period after taking the drug, and in Scotland there have been unconfirmed cluster of deaths in the last month from people injecting Xanax. Since securing this debate, I've been informed by honourable members of further cases of Xanax abuse which have resulted in hospitalisation of teenagers. Data about how widespread the misuse of Xanax is patchy at best. Last week I met with King's College London Emeritus Professor of Clinical Psychopharmacology, Malcolm Lader OBE, who has over 50 years' experience of working in this field. He told me more about the effects of Xanax. He said that Xanax was a powerful benzodiazepine, which, if overused, could lead to a constantly dazed zombie-like state and could cause amnesia, depression, psychiatric disorders, rage and aggression. Taking it with alcohol will result in a faster metabolism and absorption of the drug and an amplification of the symptoms. He added that it was highly addictive, more difficult to come off than heroin, with both prolonged psychological and physical reactions of muscle tensions, tremors and perception disorders to light, sound and noise. He further added that in serious cases of overdose, it could lead to death due to slowing down the heart and breathing problems. So why has Xanax become so popular recently? Well, aside from being cheap, and I've mentioned that it's being sold for £1 a pill in my constituency, and being just a click away on the internet, it has also been glamorised in American rap music. The rapper Future has referred to Xanax in songs such as Zanny Family and Perk is Calling, and Lil Uzi Vert has done the same in his song EXO Tour Life, also known as Push Me to the Edge, which as of today has been viewed 147 million times on YouTube. The artist 6ix9ine, who has over 1.5 million Instagram followers, often makes references to Xanax in his songs, as does Lil Wayne, such as in his song I Feel Like Dying. The list of rap songs mentioning Xanax or Xannies is endless, and I wish to thank my nephew Alex for enlightening me about rap music.
My honourable friend give way on that point.
I'll give way.
Thank you. This isn't a new issue. Body Count rapper Ice-T's rock band, in their 1997 song, Dr. K sang, "Need some Xanax, want some pills, I want the Grim Reaper as my guest." Ice-T's social commentary as a way of getting the heart of the issue 20 years ago. Does my honourable friend agree with me that some rappers, like Ice-T, don't glorify Xanax but give the grim reality?
That's an excellent point made by my honourable friend, and I'm just going to come on to how some rappers have been dealing with the issue of Xanax in a very different way, and I'll deal with that now. So some rap artists have even allowed themselves to be filmed in a zombie-like state after claiming to have taken Xanax before they eventually lose consciousness. But even in the world of American rap, things are changing. On the 15th of November 2017, American rap artist Lil Peep bragged about taking 6 Xanax pills on camera. Hours later, he was found dead on his tour bus as a result of an overdose. The clip of him bragging is still available for all to see on YouTube and other social media. Following the death of Lil Peep, the rapper Lil Pump, who previously had a song called 4 Xans and other songs with reference to Xanax, and who had posed for a picture with a Xanax cake to celebrate achieving 1 million followers on Instagram, announced on New Year's Day that he would no longer be taking Xanax. 3-time Grammy-winning artist Chance the Rapper has also been candid about his addiction to Xanax up until 2014. He told his 6 million Twitter followers, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Xanax was the new heroin and not to be fooled. He's gone on to do interviews where he talks about the damaging effects of Xanax on him and his recovery from addiction. Now, whether this is a matter of art imitating life or life imitating art, the problem is certainly a real one in the UK. Having questioned adults over the age of 30, very few had heard of Xanax, and yet those younger, ranging from 12 to 14 years of age, had heard of it and would sometimes mock my ignorance and that of their parents. On the older end of the range, users are self-medicating with Xanax to ease their anxiety. The truth is that there is a cultural and age divide, and for whatever reason, the fact remains that Xanax is certainly the drug of choice for some young people. Maybe it's because it helps numb the pain, maybe because it's a fashionable drug, maybe because it's cheap and easy to get hold of. I can only speculate. What I do know is that not enough is being done about the problem, which I believe is likely to get worse. Xanax is the drug of choice for the young generation, and if steps aren't taken now to tackle the problem, we'll be suffering the consequences both in the cost to the NHS and in personal tragedies. And whilst it's pleasing to find that Xanax is the #1 news item on the government's Talk to Frank website, designed to be accessed by young people, much more needs to be done. In the United States of America, abuse of Xanax is endemic, and even some of those who were legally prescribed Xanax are dependent on the drug. There is widespread ignorance of Xanax among the general public. There is very little, if any, research or data into the misuse of Xanax and the reasons people use it, and there is very little being done for those who have dependencies on Xanax. There are also enormous pressures on children and young people's mental health services. There is a mental health crisis in our classrooms, and funding for CAMHS has been cut. There is a window for early intervention, and that is key. Half of all mental health problems are established by the age of 14 and 3/4 by the age of 24. So if the government wants to do something about the problem, I would strongly suggest that they do each of the following 3 things. The government should be running campaigns to raise awareness of the dangers of misusing and abusing Xanax to inform the public. The lack of knowledge about Xanax and its side effects is startling. The government should be providing more support for young people who develop a dependency on Xanax via specialist drop-in centres and not rely on existing addiction centres. Adult drug and substance misuse services are not appropriate for young people. Children and young people's mental health services also need to be better resourced to cover this need. The government should also commission, carry out and publish research into the prevalence of Xanax use and its effect. We don't know how big this problem is nationally, and yet we know that young people are attending local A&E units suffering from the effects of Xanax. These 3 actions will go some way to help alleviate some of the immediate problems caused by Xanax. They won't help Zoe, who's been robbed of 6 months of her life with potentially life-changing consequences, but they may help others, and that is something that we should all be striving to do.
Minister.